Welcome to Fairfax County Looks Back. I am Lynn Garvey Hodge, chairperson of the Fairfax County History Commission and a member of the Ethnic and Oral History Committee. Joining us today is former commission member Naomi Zeavin. She was appointed in 1994 by then District Supervisor Tina Trapnell. Naomi represented the Mason District until 2016, serving us for 22 years. Naomi, thank you for joining us today. So I have a number of questions that we're going to be going over to help our listeners better understand what all happened during your tenure as a commissioner and some of your favorite moments as a commissioner. So let's begin with you. What is your background and where were you born? Give us a little bit of history about who you are, Naomi.
Yes, and thank you for asking me, Lynn. First of all, I want to say I'm 90 years young. So if I make any mistakes, bear with me, because my mind isn't as sharp as it used to be. I was born on March 12th, 1933. That was the day that Roosevelt closed the banks, Depression, and also Girl Scout Day. And I went to Lincoln School, and I hope they never change the name Lincoln like they're changing things now. And then I went to Dean. I went to prep school. My father and mother wanted me to be a lady. And while in prep school, I did a lot of dancing. And I was known for my Frankie and Johnny.
Oh.
Yeah, and sometimes I got on the table and sang it.
Oh, how fun, how fun.
So that made it go. And then I went to Emerson College.
Okay.
And after that, I got married. So in the summer, I went to Mitchell Summer School. So I feel all those years gave me a lot of education.
Wonderful. And what state was that in?
Connecticut.
That was in Connecticut.
Yes, I lived in, we had a summer home. Well, I know winter. It was a summer winter home.
Okay.
And it was in Waterford, Connecticut, which is New London, Connecticut. Okay. And it was a really wonderful experience. I love Pisces. I'm on the water. I have 4 children. Jerry's a physician, went to Georgetown, but he considers himself more a Hokie because he went to Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech.
Spencer went to Virginia Tech and then to Georgetown like he did and became a physician. Jill is a psychotherapist with a master's degree, and I'm real proud of her. And I have a special son, Brad. And then I have 5 grandchildren, 2 step-grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. How's that?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. What a life. What a life.
So, ready for the next question.
There you go. All right. So why did you choose to live in Fairfax County? What brought you here, Naomi?
Just lucky.
Lucky. Okay.
But how I got here is after I was married, very shortly, just a few years, we were at Fort Dix, and my husband then had to choose where he's going to practice. And I said to my parents, I want to be at least near as I can to Connecticut. Okay. So, I mean, he had choices all over the country where to go, not knowing the people or anything. But after his interviews, he said, okay, we'll go to Alexandria, Virginia. So that's how we got to Alexandria and rented a house for a little while. And one day we were driving around and we saw Lake Barcroft, which I love water. So I said, oh, we have to stay here. So my husband thought about it because he had to drive to work to Alexandria. But we settled in Alexandria, which is Fairfax County, the Alexandria part that was Fairfax County.
Okay.
So that's how I got to Fairfax County.
All right. And Lake Barcroft.
And Lake Barcroft,
Yes.
which is beautiful.
It is wonderful. It is absolutely wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your career and accomplishments before you became a member of the Fairfax County History Commission.
At that time, women weren't working.
Right.
So everybody wanted to volunteer. Okay. So I had many people come after me to volunteer.
Sure.
So one thing I did when I went through my notes, and it reminded me, I did a lot for the Heart Association. They don't do as much anymore, but they would have a Heart Sunday where you would really bring in a lot of money and people would call in, and they would have an event afterwards in the next month or so at the Marriott. Well, the Marriott's gone now, and all the social things years ago, because this is in the 50s.
Sure.
Now, I'm going back a lot of years. And this Marriott was on the turn when you were going to National Airport to the right.
Okay.
They had two. They had the Key Bridge and they had this one. And it was huge, had a beautiful, what would I say, room for balls and dances. And all of us in Northern Virginia always used to go there. Well, like other things, that was torn down a long time ago, and it's gone. And then another thing I did that took a lot of time was I became the president of United Cerebral Palsy. And years ago, we used to have a telethon, and it was big time, and Channel 9, and all the celebrities would come, and we did everything on index cards. Could take everybody back. So when people called, we wrote everything down on index cards. And then we went to a bank in Washington that locked the door, and we had to count all the money ourselves that came in from all over the state of Virginia. So that was about 5 years, you know, we did that. And so I'm trying to think of other things I did. Oh, I took a Red Cross course, which came in handy later. And I became president of the Greater Falls Church Republican Women's Club.
Okay.
Not to mention politics, I know.
No, right.
But it was the largest Republican women's club in the state. It became like 3 different clubs. So we were very, very busy fundraising. And when we gave money to a candidate, like $50, this is so many years ago, they thought that was a lot of money.
Sure, sure.
And now it's so changed. You've got to be a millionaire to run.
Right.
But these were nice local boys that ran. So so I was very busy before I came in to do the county work. And I really loved being a historian. I was, before that, 16 years from Tom Davis appointed me to Social Service Board.
Oh, okay.
And that was very sad. But what we taught people was to work. We were trying to get, it was very hard, trying to get them ready for jobs so they could get out of the poor situations they were in. So then I was sort of ready for something else when Tina Trapnell said, "Would you like to be on the History Commission?" And I jumped at the chance.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So you've had a lot of different experience, I know, doing so many different things before you came to the commission, and you brought all that good experience with you. So what are some of the things that you did on the commission? I know, for instance, Naomi, one of the things that I always admired about your contribution to the commission were all the little booklets that you put together about the historical realities that happened in Mason District. Do you know what I'm talking about? The small booklets that you put together?
Yes, I made some, the history booklets for the Civil War trails.
Right, right.
And nobody else had these.
Right.
And it tells everything about what the History Commission has doing.
Right.
And every word has to have authority. You have to have research on it.
Right.
And we have a committee on the History Commission that just does nothing but is in charge of the markers.
The markers, right.
And I did a lot of markers, a lot in our area. I raised a lot of money to do them.
Right.
And we have a whole bunch just right in my area.
Sure. The Clark House, I can think of, is
Yes,
the place
we
that you...
have, you start with Lincoln reviewing the troops.
Right.
And then we have Jeb Stewart on Munson's Hill, and then the skirmishes at Bailey's Crossroads.
Sure.
And then a little bit further, you have where Lincoln had his forts at Fort Buffalo at Seven Corners. So we had action all the way through. And then I threw the Baileys in and did the Baileys, who started Bailey's Crossroads, and we put a gazebo there.
Naomi, we know about the Historical Society of Fairfax County. They published your article called The Bailey Family from Menagerie to Crossroads in volume 28 of their 2001 to 2002 yearbook, where your research debunked the myth that there once was a circus at Bailey's Crossroads. Can you talk more about that article, please?
Hecaliah Bailey.
Yes.
I just love the story of Hecaliah Bailey. He came from Somers, New York. So we drove to Somers, New York, because people told me he had an elephant hotel there. So we went, John, my husband, and I drove to Somers, New York, and went to their history group, that they had a small one. But the Elephant Hotel is used as their city hall now. But the Baileys were really from early times, Revolutionary War times. They served in the Revolutionary War, and one of Hecaliah Bailey's was an officer in that war. So they came from good stock, let's say, up there.
Good American stock.
And he had a menagerie, and he had animals that he would take around and earn money for. And he had cattle, and he was just a brilliant man. He had like about 5 different things that he did. And so he raised a lot of money by charging people 25 cents. They figured it was like $100,000 that he made doing that. His brother-in-law had brought in the first elephant in America. So Hecaliah Bailey thought that was sort of interesting. So he bought the second elephant, called Betsy. That was his favorite elephant. And then Betsy died, and then he bought the third and the fourth. Then he gave up. But he had always had elephants, and people would shoot the elephants. It was very sad, because one man thought it was bad that people were paying to see animals, and kids just shot the elephant. But he liked Betsy so much. She's the one that's on the top of the hotel. So we feel that the reason he bought the land is his son Louis had a circus and used to come to Alexandria, Virginia. At that time, circuses didn't have any animals up until 1830. So this is like 1827. And we feel it was because Louis saw the land at Bailey's Crossroads that Hecaliah bought that land. So I'm going to skip for a minute and say that Louis was in the circus, and he would do trampoline stuff, and he could ride horses.
Wow.
And he went through a balloon of fire, it said. But they both gave up the circus when they bought the land, and he gave it to Louis, but he signed it over to Mariah, the wife, for Bailey's Crossroads. So then he moved to Bailey's Crossroads, but Hecaliah never lived here, although he paid for it, but he would come and visit it. And Louis had the big mansion there Do you want me to just keep going on about Bailey's? Is that okay?
Bit, just for a little bit, yeah, because we've got so many other things to talk about. This is fascinating, and a lot of people do not know much of this history.
And this is, they had a big mansion. I guess show it, do they see it like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you notice, he has a big middle and 2 sides there.
Okay.
So they had 68 rooms.
Wow.
And people used to come from all Washington and relax out here. He had a tavern on the grounds.
Okay.
He had 9 sons and 1 daughter, so all the sons would work different things. And this home was so beautiful. I have an article that one of the Bailey's great-great-great-grandsons, who I became with, gave me, an article from AAA 1930, and she compared the house to Mount Vernon and the Lee House. And it had some pictures. At that time, they were worn down, but of the side things on there. He built like a pond on there.
Oh, my.
He had was into horticulture, and he had a dairy. So Mariah took care of the house and the children, and he took care of the outside things. But they had the Willard Hotel would buy all their dairy things from them.
Oh, my goodness.
So they had a big dairy business to make money.
Now, today, where would that be? Would that be in the Bailey's Crossroads area? Give us a sense of where that might have been.
Yes, it's exactly where Safeway was.
Okay.
So what do we say now? Safeway went out of business. But it was called Moray Mansion, and they had a nice long driveway that it went in, and he had some wonderful horses with the top, you know, like the songs, where rich people would come out to it. So the History Commission did get to name the path going to the school, which would have been near Fairfax Brewster School, which is no more.
Okay.
And they named it Moray Lane.
Okay.
So one of the part of the house, say the left side might have been moved. He built these sections so they could be moved, Lewis. And so after they died, the great-great-grandson said he lived in it, but it was moved across the street, which became that Fairfax Brewster School.
Okay, so that's a designation.
And during the Civil War, I could just talk too much about them, I think.
Okay. Okay, so can you do maybe a closing, what your fondest memory is of having done all that research?
On the Bailey family?
Sure.
Well, I would say it was wonderful because I became friends with them.
Yes.
And Sam Bailey, the great-great-grandson, would have a big pig roast every year. And he had like 100 people we would come. And then I started getting invited to it. It was in Maryland. So he was a lot like his great-great-grandfather. And
friendly and enterprising.
Wonderful
Friendly
guy.
and enterprising
Sam
people.
Bailey, wonderful.
That's great. Well, I'm going to ask a couple of other questions here, Naomi, in regards to some of the things in Mason District. And one is, in terms of the war in Vietnam, as you lived in the Mason District, what effect did you see that had on Fairfax County?
It's a big, big part of my life, the war in Vietnam.
Okay.
I don't think you know this part of my life, but I have a very patriotic background, which you're going to ask about later. And I decided to raise gifts for the men and women in Vietnam. And somehow I hooked up with somebody after a while in the White House, but it was my idea to just do it. But then they were doing it in the White House, but I didn't know it. So I use the nucleus of the women in my clubs, which I always do, because you always need a lot of help to do anything.
Correct.
You can't do it yourself.
Right.
So the fire stations decided to get in and let us drop off the books. I had a whole list of things, socks, washcloth. It was very hot there.
Right.
So they wanted those things for
Towelettes.
babies. Yeah. And, I mean, there were like hundreds of things. Well, we got 6.5 tons of gifts.
Oh my heavens, Naomi.
And I saw them flown off. I did see
Oh.
them go. And they gave me a hat. It was an Australian hat for some reason that they all wore. And one day I got a package, and in it was an award for service to the nation from President Nixon. And I've seen it in other high people's houses. And on it is a stamp from the moon. And it was a gift to me for, I figure it must be for that because I didn't ask for it and I didn't know, I was going to get it. The second thing was being a doctor's wife at that time, I went to Walter Reed, and I would serve once a month. This is the Walter Reed that's gone now.
Right.
And I was in the long halls there. And I would be a Red Cross, and I had a Red Cross uniform. And I did their games with them.
All right.
And I'd talk with the fellas,
The soldiers.
And then the third thing was we did parties for them. But it was so sad we stopped, I mean, the parties. There was, like, you're trying to be fun, and they're so sad,
It was a disconnect.
Yeah. So we did that. And the third thing is we did a show for them.
Did you?
A pantomime show.
Okay.
And that. And then there was an article in the Northern Virginia Sun, and it said, we may not agree about the war with Mrs. Zeavin, but hats off to all she's doing.
Oh.
So it was non-political. I just did it because it was our boys and women.
And out of the kindness of your heart, Naomi.
Yes.
You have a very big heart. I do know that.
But
I
that's
do know
where, so Vietnam and the wall, which is now, and I've been down to the wall, and I had the bracelet. I still have the bracelet. And I've never found his name in the book. So I'm hoping someday that man shows up.
Yeah.
I have that. You remember the metal bracelet
I
everyone
do
wore?
remember. I do remember.
So it affected me more that I brought people together than they were against. And we never fought about, is it right or is it wrong?
No.
And now I hate wars.
Yeah.
And they're also sad.
Well, you are wonderful at creating common ground, Naomi.
So,
you're very,
Eddie.
very good at that. And you're quite an...
So when you hit Vietnam, and that's why that question really came out
Right.
under another one, and that's why I got mixed up.
That's fine. That's fine. Well, you've certainly been a wonderful hostess, and I know the folks at Lake Barcroft have just really enjoyed being your neighbor and are interacting with you. And yes, one of the questions that we did want to zero in on is, why are you so patriotic?
Well, it's my family.
Yes.
We were immigrants on both sides. My father came from Poland, and he was here not that, and when I think about it, they were not here that many years, but they were all very modern, fell right into America and loved America. And my Uncle Joe went into the First World War and was a Marine. So you have to understand that they were only here a few years, and then his brother signed up and was in the First World War too, and I have a picture of both of them. But Uncle Joe was fighting, and there's an article because his brother, the son rather, wrote about he had this machine gun, and the certain battle it was, and he was just shot to pieces and survived, and he had 50 operations after.
Oh, my.
But he was very patriotic. He became commander, even though he was Jewish, of the Veterans of Foreign War, and there's another one, DMV, besides that one. And he would lead the parade all the time, and he had a metal helmet. And I remember my brother Artie, we were close, sitting on the sidelines as he marched in all the parades. And then came the Second World War, and it hit our family, bango. So he had a son who became an Army person, Army sergeant, and he was 6'5", and they called him Tiny. Gorgeous smile, beautiful boy. 5 weeks before the end of the war, he was killed. The thing is, he was a hero. He got 6 SS German people he captured.
Wow.
And he got the Bronze Star for that. So when my uncle was on the boat coming home wounded, some man said to him, and they said that this war, we wouldn't lose our men. And he had just lost his son. Then my mother's family got really hit hard. That was my mother's family. That was her brother's family. And her sister's family lost a young boy. And I named my children their middle names after both of them, Al and Leo. And Al and Leo, he was just a gunner. And I could just see him, and so young. And he died shooting, and I could sort of visualize him, like in the war, they have the guys dying just like that. And he would alone. And he died in Aachen in Germany in battle. So I had 2 first cousins. Their brother was wounded, a medic. Thank God my brother couldn't go in until the very end, kind of aged. But I had another cousin that fought everywhere, and knock on wood, he came out. But all families were hit like that. I mean, not just ours. But you can see why I'm so patriotic, because they died for us for having freedom. And I try to teach people and children that people have really died for us that I know, so that you could have freedom.
Right. It's so precious. It's so precious. That's a beautiful story, Naomi. Thank you.
It's true.
Thank you so much. So Naomi, you seem to have had several memorable moments while you were on the commission, and you have a collection in the Fairfax County Library. It is called the Naomi Zokel Zeavin Collection on the Mason District from 1992 to 2012. Can you tell us more about what's featured in this collection? Yes.
Okay, these are booklets. And I have so many booklets, but this one it proved that there was no circus at Bailey's Crossroads.
Oh, you've got that documented.
And I almost forgot that main point.
Okay.
And there was a book written called Elephants and Quaker Guns.
Okay.
And I wanted to know where the circus was. Well, there was no circus, but nobody knew that. So when I did it, I called, Tom Davis helped me on this one, and he got me in touch with somebody from Bailey's Circus, and I called them, and they got me a historian, Stuart Thayer. So we went through it, everything on this. Don't forget, when I went up to Summers, they didn't know anything about a circus at Bailey's Crossroads, because they just knew of the zoology and the walking animals. But I have it here, and I have the corrections, and we tried to give all the corrections out.
Good.
but we couldn't get the book reprinted. But it ends up, there was no circus at Bailey's Crossroads.
Okay.
And he corrected all, he was so fine. We worked a year on this.
Oh, bless your heart.
And he gave me all the corrections. I never met him. His name was Stuart Thayer. So I have all his proof in here. And I told one lady, and she says, I don't care if you say there's no circus. I'm telling my kids there was a circus.
Oh, my heavens. Oh, my heavens.
It's so hard if you prove things to people.
Yes.
Sometimes they just don't want to know, you know, because hearsay becomes history.
Yes.
But we on the History Commission, that's our main thing. Everything has to be documented, right, Lynn?
That's right. That's right. Very carefully, well researched, and you're very, very good at that. Naomi, one of the other things that I know you spent a lot of time on within the Mason District was your connection to the people that were involved with the Clark House, and how that may or may not have been kind of connected with Thurgood Marshall, who lived at Lake Barcroft.
Well, it wasn't connected. It's that I got to speak to, I had a different, I was the guest curator at the Clark House.
Okay.
That's it. So I had different events there.
Okay, and talk about the Clark House a little bit so we can
Yes,
get
the
that
Clark
position.
House, the Clark House was a new house. They were built in 1902.
Okay.
And it was a big dairy, dairy farm. And when I talked at one place, I met a woman we interviewed that was born on the land on the Clark House land, and the father worked for the Clarks. And it was just the house that is historical. And then in 1950 it was sold. And then now the Park Authority took it over. And they have events there. Right. And that's when I did a guest, I was a guest at the Clark House. It was known for its architecture. And thank God they saved something, because they've, you know, tore too many things down.
Yes.
So that's the story. There's not a lot of history about the Clarks, but I have a true story about the Clarks.
Okay.
Old man Clark, they used to have a big pile of dirt, and people would come by and see this dirt at the Clark House. And in later years, this maybe he was the great-grandfather, but he used to take dirt and sell it. And he came to my house, and I had a swimming pool bill in Lake Barcroft, and he put the dirt in, and he brought the big tractor in, and he was one nice guy, and I got to know old man Clark. So that's my story.
Oh,
and I'm sticking to it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So Naomi, talk about some of your accomplishments that you made while you were on the History Commission.
I would say when I was working for Channel 16, Penny got me the job here to do my 2 videos here.
Okay.
And I always had a crush on George Washington because they had a picture of him when I went to Lincoln School. And George Washington, the unfinished portrait was there. So, so anyway, I forgot what we're talking about.
Well, one of the things we were talking about was some of the more memorable moments that you've had with the History Commission.
Oh,
and some of the things
so
that we've done
we did
together.
the video.
Yes.
On
You've done a video about George Washington.
yes, it was George Washington in Fairfax, and we filmed it at Mount Vernon.
Yep.
And
I've seen that.
we were the first people that filmed the death scene in the death room at Mount Vernon.
Oh my.
And that was really exciting.
Yeah.
I worked with a wonderful producer, George, and he had us get up real early, like 4 o'clock one morning, because he wanted to get the sunrise at Mount Vernon. But we did get it in the video, and it was freezing.
Right.
But that was one memory. And the other is when I got the award And I know you had a lot to do with it for a lifetime. They
Lifetime
usually give
achievement.
it to people that die, and I think it was nice to give it when I was living. But I was talking to somebody else at the time. They said my name, and I was so shocked. You really fooled me. And people said, you didn't really know? And I said, no. And then Levy, what's her name?
Suzanne.
Suzanne said,
Levy,
Naomi,
yes.
Naomi, get up out of your chair, because I didn't know.
Yes.
So that was such a shock. And Congressman now, Conley, had put his arm around me and took me up and took care of me as I accepted it. And I do accept it, and I really appreciate it.
Yes. Well,
I
you've
do.
done so many things. And your videos, Naomi, one of the more recent videos I believe you also were involved in was the Pines community marker, when that marker was dedicated. That was
I want to tell you something interesting, because I was going to put down that as my last thing, the two things that I feel I accomplished the most
Yes.
would be the Civil War Trail.
Okay.
I got us on the Civil War Trail, remember? And I knew I worked so hard to get us on. No one paid much attention to us until I just felt, working with Ed Bars, that we deserved it. So we got on that. But all the work I did with African Americans,
Yes.
I started to take notes. The Pines, I felt, was very important to me.
Absolutely.
They came to the History Commission. The Dobbs, Marion Dobbins came, and her sister or aunt, and they told us how they took their land.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah,
just kind of
because
tell that story, because it's kind of a sad part of our
It's a very sad part.
our county's
The whole
history.
African American part is very sad. They had all these homes that their grandfather got for fighting in the Spanish-American War.
Which
He
makes
got this
sense.
money, and he bought this land. And all of a sudden, Fairfax County is looking for a place to build a school.
It was called the Pines.
So they picked that land.
Yes.
They picked the Pines, who had like maybe 10, 15 houses
Oh, at least.
at least.
Yes.
And it was a lovely, I did a video on it if you want to see it,
Yes.
on my YouTube.
Right.
And they took the land, but they never built the school.
Right. Yeah. Right. It was.
And they gave them little money, not very much.
Yes.
They couldn't buy much with the money they gave them,
Right.
houses, and they put a garden in there.
That's and soccer
They
fields
didn't
today.
build it.
Yeah, so-
I was hoping that we could get something out. I know they did sue after and tried to get more money, and I thought doing the Pines sign that we could do that.
Yes.
But
yes.
Penny didn't budge, and I think they wanted to forget the whole thing.
Well, the genesis of it was sad, because these folks had 60 days to empty their homes.
Right.
And it was under the right of eminent domain. And it was the Fairfax County Public School System that,
Right.
that did it. It wasn't our Board of Supervisors. And it was kind of a sad commentary about that place and time. And I think you're right on, Naomi, that is something that still needs to be rectified in some
Yes.
kind of fashion,
So when,
probably more than a
yes,
marker.
but they came, and the chairman at that time was Charles. And
Charles Robleski.
yeah, and we met with them, the two of us, and said we were going to help you. But it took us a couple of years before we did the marker. But when they did the show or accepting the Pines, and they sang for the first time, I never heard the African National Anthem. Well, now everybody has heard it.
Right. Lift every
but they
heart.
did it. They told their stories. And it was so moving, and so it wasn't happy.
No, it was not.
It really was sad, and And quickly I'll say this, what I did for the Africans, somehow I felt something should be done for African Americans. So I went on my own to the church, the Baptist church, and the Warner Baptist Church in the Mount Pleasant, and I said, I'd like to do your history, and I promise you I'll make a notebook of it. So I went to Mount Pleasant, and I went to I just thought I'd write all this out, the Warner Baptist, and I went to the third place where this man, Reverend George Marshall, lived, and maybe people have seen it, has all the brick, and he has all these kachkas around his house, and he has the Lacey Baptist Church back there. And they all did come to meetings. They wrote up the history, and the library liked it so much, my paper books on their stories, they wanted to do, they told me it should be a book.
Oh my.
So that they can do research.
Yes.
So Tom Davis gave me the money, and I have 2 books, and people can see their history in here with their pictures and everything.
That's wonderful, Naomi.
But then I realized that I went to they asked me to do Gunston Hall for Gladys Bouchard, who is African American, who was 99.
Yeah, Bouchard.
So I went and George Mason's land was given to them for a church. So we went and did that church. So with the Dobbins, we did the Merrifield Church, I figured Gunston Hall, and the 3 others. So I think that's one of the main things that I did, was the African Americans.
The documentation.
We had the celebration at the Clark House for them too. It wasn't happy, but it came out. And the main thing is, I think they had their day, and there are more days to come.
All right. So you're looking into the future.
Yeah.
So let's kind of begin to close here a little bit, Naomi. I think the things you've shared today have just been absolutely fascinating in terms of some of the details of the Mason District in Fairfax County. Tell us, what are some of your hopes and wishes for this county?
I hope that Fairfax will do more history and on George Washington and George Mason, who are from Fairfax County.
Right.
Alexandria does the parade. They do everything, and they have a ball. I would like to see the History Commission maybe form a small committee and see to it that, especially today, with them trying to take away everything that we believe in, our Constitution, our everything, and changing in everything, we should take center stage. We have the footprints.
Fairfax County does.
Yep.
We certainly do. We certainly do. And Naomi, for you, how would you like your legacy as a history member of the Fairfax County History Commission remembered?
I really couldn't think. I think that what my legacy is, I'll let the people think that.
Well, I'll share a couple thoughts with you.
Okay.
And I've mentioned one already. You have a big heart. Your sincerity and everything that you do in terms of research and documentation, all your videos and your books, has always been done for the goodwill of the people that you work with and the good people of this county. And I think we've been very, very lucky to have had you on the Fairfax County History Commission for 22 years. And it has been an absolute, absolute delight sharing time with you today here at Fairfax County Looks Back. Naomi, thank you so much for being with us today, and we really appreciate all the detailed information you've given us about Mason District and the time you've served on our commission. Thank you for your 22 years again. For more information about the Fairfax County History Commission, please visit our website. Thank you and good night.